This is Monta Welch. I'm with People's Visioning, and we have been doing a series of programs that we just began for the viewers to learn a lot more about People's Visioning, to learn about some of the issues that we address, and very specifically, we've had some programming on a very hot button issue that has become hot button for our state, which is the Right to Farm Amendment 1. We've had a series of interviews to discuss that, and I'd like to update you on that today. And so we'll focus mostly on that, but I did want to share with you that People's Visioning is an organization that has been working on issues that are interrelated to the right to farm, our food and water security, our energy security, and our financial institutions, the problems that we're experiencing in finance, and then also how all of that intertwines with our governance. And as we can see, the Amendment 1, Right to Farm, came out of the state legislature, and it was about 10 weeks ago determined that it would be on our August 5th ballot. And for those of you watching, that will be this next Tuesday. So we are going to discuss that and then urge folks to make sure that they go and vote and share with people what they've learned on the program today. And you could also check your viewing schedule to find other information that we have had interviews with the folks from Missouri Rural Crisis Center. That is an organization that supports farming, small farmers around our state. And we've had an interview in that same program with folks that are trying to stop additional factory farming in Callaway County. That is on one program together. Then we've had another interview with our former Lieutenant Governor Joe Maxwell, who himself is a hog farmer and an attorney, as well as having served in our state legislature before he became Lieutenant Governor. So we are offering those interviews as well as a longer interview with Dr. John Eichert, who is someone who was raised on a farm, knows this industry inside and out. It's been his profession since he only a year and a half ago retired. He spent time at different universities, with a large bulk of that at our own Missouri MU in the ag department, studying ag and economics. So there are some very good programming segments that you might like to pick up here on MediaCom. And so we want to thank MediaCom and Sheila, who is our person that's taping for us. We so appreciate both of them for providing this service to our broader community here across the state. And we thank you, the viewers, for watching and really understanding that your vote is important and your participation in our democracy is super important. So to let you know now a little bit more about Right to Farm, Amendment 1, our organization opposes Amendment 1. People's Visioning was one of the earlier folks who came out in opposition to Amendment 1. The people, obviously, that I just mentioned, the Missouri Rural Crisis Center, Friends for Responsible Farming, are also the folks heading up the opposition to the new CAFO. CAFO is the acronym for Confined Animal Feeding Operation, where a lot of different, it can be chickens, it can be cows, it can be pigs. In this case, it is the hog farm, that are all in a confined area. And there are lots of problems with that we can touch on as we go along. But I want to mention some of the other folks who've come out in opposition to Amendment 1, and then we'll start discussing more about it so you can understand why they're opposing as we go along. The Farmers Union is a very key and important organization. It's the oldest farmers organization here in the state, and they have come out in opposition to Amendment 1. Along with these other organizations that are representing primarily farmers Sustainable Farms and Communities is another organization that works with farmers and communities to build sustainable communities and farms, and to help bring a new sustainable model to provide food and water security that is better for our environment and provides healthier food ultimately, which provides better health for all of us, saves money in our health dollars, and a lot of different positive reasons, promotes stronger local economies, et cetera. These are some of the organizations: League of Women Voters, Sierra Club, a number of different environmental organizations, community groups, people from all parts of the political spectrum, libertarians, Democrats, people that are independents, some Republicans, different people from different parts of the spectrum. So we have a very broad and wide coalition, people who just, all of us eat. So, you know, people who are just consumers and want to support their family farmers. These are folks, a lot of different individual small farms have come out opposing this, and you can find out more of who those people are on our campaign website, which is www.votenoon1, and that's the numeral 1, .com. So you can look at some more of the supporters there. In addition to those supporters, we've had media coverage that has really grown. Our first newspaper to come out and endorse our campaign, the opposition to Amendment 1, Right to Farm. We call it Right to Harm, we think is a better name for it. And a lot of the papers have begun to understand, you know, what the issues are that the opposition have laid out, and they have been then repeating those and laying those out in their print and online media. The first print paper to come out was the Tribune in Jefferson City, and shortly after that, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and the Kansas City Star. We have a number of other large cities, as well as small rural publications that have been joining them, the Globe, the Joplin Globe, and the Springfield News Leader, and a lot of different ones. You can find a list of those and read their editorials to help inform yourself if you go to the website, again, votenoon1, the numeral 1, .com. So just to kind of give you a quick overview, though, of what you'll find if you take time to go do that, and some of you may not have time to visit the website, but also there, you know, if you like what you hear, you can sign up and volunteer too in these last few days to help at that site as well. But some of the bigger issues are that there's a lot of deception in the language. There are anytime there's something on the ballot, there's the language that you will read on the ballot, and then there's the legal language that goes into either the statutes or, in this case, into our Constitution. And when you look at those different languages, and they have differences that could have very strong significance and significant impacts on the outcome of what we are approving or not approving, that is really a problem. This language says that Missouri citizens could have the right to farm forever guaranteed, and the language that would actually be approving, that would go into our Constitution, and nowhere does it say Missouri, Missourians, or Missouri citizens, or even citizens. So it leaves the language very open to bigger corporations that might not be Missourians. They might not even be U.S. citizens. And there's a big concern because within this past year, our legislature doubled the amount of land that foreign entities could own in our state. And you can kind of see, if this begins to be a problem, Missourians won't even own their own land. So it's kind of opening the gate for this to happen, both with outside interests in farming kinds of categories from different states. Right now, the folks fighting the expanded CAFO in Hatton, which is very near to Fulton in Callaway County, they're fighting an organization or a corporation, essentially, from Iowa farms that want to expand here, because in these other states that have had a lot of the CAFOs, the confined animal feeding operations, they've been permitting them. Now they are seeing the consequences of what they've done. These are very damaging to the environment and to the health of the hogs in this case that they're producing, and in other cases to the health of the chickens or the cattle. When they're produced in these confinements, a lot of antibiotics have to be used. The health organizations are coming out to say that new antibiotic resistant strains are becoming a huge problem, antibiotic resistant strains of bacteria, and they are pointing the finger at these confined operations, because in these operations they use many more and a lot more of it in the antibiotics to keep the animals in those conditions healthier, but also to get them to put weight on faster. So they routinely feed them the antibiotics, which is causing these strains of bacteria to become resistant in human populations as well as the animal populations. So we are having some serious consequences, from environmental degradation of the water, the air, and the soil, to the kinds of problems just mentioned with the antibiotics. You can clearly see from this line of conversation that these bigger operations long-term are not sustainable for our planet, because what do you do with all this concentrated waste, essentially, and byproducts? So we might, as consumers, need to rethink, how much meat that we do eat. We might, certainly as producers of the meat, need to say, well, is there a more sustainable way that I can do this and still make good money? And yes, there is. The sustainable farms and communities I work with, as well as direct the People's Visioning. Sustainable farms and communities, as I mentioned, are endorsing the opposition, encouraging folks to vote no on one. And their job is to, help with this smaller sustainable model, help to put the folks, those of us who don't farm and certainly want good quality food, in touch with the farmers. So the farmers can do this different type of farming with the more sustainable model, where the animals have the space, the waste doesn't build up to this degree, and they are more healthy, so they don't need as many antibiotics. So a lot of solutions are accomplished within this different, more sustainable model. And while maybe less meat is produced, by going directly to the farmers markets and directly to the consumer with these programs, the farmers can still make excellent money for the amount of food that they're producing. And in terms of feeding the world, these farms, many of them are organic actually, not all of them, but a lot of them are kind of leaning more that way, and might, while they might use some chemical fertilizer, many of them wouldn't qualify for organic that way, but they still don't use the pesticides and herbicides that we'll talk about here in a minute. But these farms, many of them can produce organically and by other methods. For example, an urban farm of 3 acres alone is able to produce 1 million pounds of food in a year, and you can Google Will Allen to learn more about these models. It's in our best interest to all of us become more food secure, even in the cities, to try our hand at growing some gardens, even in pots, on our balconies and porches and wherever we have a bit of sun, to supplement our food. It helps us. We can have our food right there handy for us. Tomatoes, you can grow potatoes, you can grow carrots, you can grow herbs, you can grow little bits of lettuce, different kinds of things very easily your own selves. But if you do shop at the farmer's market, people will say, well, they can't grow enough food. Well, I just told you, yeah, we can. Or they'll say, well, the cost is too much, and the farmers can keep the cost down by eliminating the middlemen and going directly to the consumer and provide a better quality so we can support our small and local movement, a sustainable farming movement that is really a big part of the picture that we'll talk about again here with Amendment 1, these two different models, the unsustainable versus the sustainable model. So at the farmer's market, and I know because I know a lot of people who have low income, and I don't have a very big income myself, and I can shop at the farmer's market and get the organic food at the same price as the non-organic food, because not all vendors in the farmer's market produce organic food. Some do and some don't. And I can get it for as good of a price as I can find in the regular stores, the regular grocery stores. So to say that we have to have this bigger or get out unsustainable farming model in order to feed the world is inaccurate, or to feed the world higher quality food is inaccurate, to feed the world at a price that even low-income people can afford is also inaccurate. So I urge you to find out more about your local farmers markets and kind of take more of your own food responsibility, and you'll find that once you eat more of these fresh vegetables, you'll really grow a taste for it, and your health will begin to improve, because we do have a lot of health-related problems to our diet, from obesity to diabetes and even to cancers and many different kinds of things, kidney diseases. These things are being linked to other aspects of the unsustainable models that I'll now mention, which grow a lot of food to feed these animals that are in confinement, rather than having them just graze on grass in the fields that the farmer doesn't have to pay or grow. And so a lot of our the Get Bigger, Get Out unsustainable model uses these food for something besides feeding people. Sometimes it's used for energy, ethanol, or sometimes it's used to feed the livestock. So while some of the livestock can be, does need some supplemental food, there are a lot of ways when you free range to cut that down drastically, so that people actually are the ones being fed on our acreage farms. And so the unsustainable model also includes crops that are genetically modified, GMO they're called, to withstand or be able to withstand larger amounts of chemical applications of herbicides or pesticides, so that this Get Bigger or Get Out model can work, because in a smaller model it is more difficult to cover 100 or 1,000 acres. So it's really two different models that are quite at odds with one another. And so this GMO food is genetically modified, sometimes even to have the to produce the poisons that kill the pesticides right in the crop, the corn for instance, so that if this is dangerous to pests, maybe it's not so great for humans either, and we can't even try to wash it off. Sometimes really science has shown that even if it's not genetically engineered to be a part of the seed producing this, but just the plant to resist and not die itself if you put a lot of herbicide on it, but kill only the weeds instead of, say, the corn or the soybeans, whatever, it produces, the plants themselves can still carry this chemical herbicide, as well as it produces super weeds. So then you have a problem, kind of like with the antibiotics, you have to use more different antibiotics. So with this, it's the same kind of story, and it's just sort of a downward spiral. Same thing with the pesticides. We're finding more and more problems. The science is beginning to stack up against this unsustainable model, And not only are bees and various other beneficial pests that we need to pollinate a good portion of our food crops that we will have trouble with if we don't have our natural pollinators. And many of them are dying not only, but also in contribution to these kinds of pesticides and the chemicals, the strong chemicals. The birds, in addition to the bees, are now being linked to these same chemicals. So you can do a lot more research if you want to. Google these matters, and I encourage you to check anything that I've said here today, and just know that this is a real people's fight. We're trying to get the information out about how this is one farming model against another farming model, and that it's wrong to enshrine in our Constitution a protection that doesn't equally protect all the farmers. And the proponents will try to say that it protects all the farmers, but you can see that an organic farm, for instance, that would have its crops pollinated by the drift from the GMOs, and then the GMO seed companies will come and say, well, gee, that's our crop now because it's got our patented pollen has contaminated your crop. So you're not only no longer organic, but they essentially confiscate the crop. So it leads to a great many problems, this model versus the other model. And so it's the smaller, more sustainable farmers who are asking you to think about this and support them as you oppose Amendment 1. And the language in the Constitution would allow foreign corporations because it's not limited to Missourians or Missouri citizens. And we can see what the legislature has done to increase the amount of land that they're allowed. And they could even take a lawsuit and say, hey, I'm a farmer, I'm a rancher, and you have this in your Constitution. So you're limiting my farming and ranching ability if you don't let me buy your land, no matter whether I'm a U.S. citizen, someone from a different state, or a foreign company. I just want you to know this is a real people's campaign. We started out with signs like this because we didn't have money until the very last minute, and now we have signs like this. You can get them by connecting with our campaign. There will be a way to connect with People's Visioning. You can go to the Root Cellar in Columbia, Missouri. There are locations in the bigger cities. If you just go to votenoonwhat.com, you can connect with the campaign to help us. We need a lot of help because it is a people's fight. We are outgunned with the money, at least 3 or 4 to 1 now, and bigger, wealthier PACs are now dumping money in because they see they do have the people standing up for this. And a lot of the media is really, once you know the information, you really have no choice but to vote no. So we'd like to ask your help if you can, so please at least spread the word to your friends and tell them they must vote, and the wise vote is to vote no. And if they're undecided still, it's still wise to vote no. If you don't know, then vote no, because it's a very serious thing to put something in the Constitution. In our state, there has not been ever a constitutional amendment that's ever been revoked in our history. It's very difficult to revoke it. This is the kind of thing, if these farmers want it, they already have protection. The small farmers point out we already have this in our statutes, which is the correct place for it because it can be modified. But in the Constitution, you can't do anything about it, and it gives a free blank check to anyone in this area of farming. It's wrong to give farming a special advantage in our Constitution as an industry. We have to say, well, maybe the nursing homes now want special protection, or maybe restaurants want special protection, and now they can do anything they want to our grandparents and parents, or they can serve, without obeying the regulations, food to us. So you can see that opening that gate is also a really dangerous thing. There's a lot of dangers in this, And so we urge you to stand with the small farmers trying to raise the alarm and to say vote no. If any outside groups, and you'll hear this, try to regulate farming in any way that isn't desired, they have tried to do it in the right place through the statutes, and it can be remodified there. And so that people can find a medium ground that works well for everyone. But right now, we would just close by saying thank you for watching our programming. Please spread the word, check out the other programs to get more informed, and connect with our campaign. We need workers at the polls to help explain this to people because it is very confusing. It's hard to understand, and another reason to vote no. If it's that good and we need it in our Constitution, they can always try again with something that's a lot less confusing and a lot less dangerous. So we urge you to get involved because this is a real people's movement, and spread the word to vote no after you've learned as much as you can. And it is Tuesday, August 5th, so you only have a few days left. We have a few of our campaign signs to get out. We only got those at the very last minute because, yes, it's a Shallow Pockets people's effort. And so we'd like to ask you to stand with the people against the big corporations. And we're not talking about the small, closely held farming corporations. Those are family corporations. We're talking about the national and multinational corporations that are members of ALEC, A-L-E-C, American Legislative Exchange Council itself, an outside organization full of these national and multinational Fortune 500 huge corporations, the huge big ag, Cargill, Monsanto, Smithfield, Syngenta, Archer Daniel Midland, Farm Bureau, which Farm Bureau is an insurance company, and at least half of their members are not even farmers, and they do not farm or really actually represent farming interests like maybe a cattlemen's association might. All of those, though, are members of American Legislative Exchange Council, whose language this is. It wasn't even our legislators' language. So please Google and learn more about American Legislative Exchange Council, and you'll find that this is language they're trying to put in all the states. And so it's definitely an outside interest trying to put their language to protect these big corporations, because that's who they write this language for, into our state constitution. So we urge you to stand with the people, investigate these groups, and know that these groups are funding this highly funded campaign. And so we need to ask you to help out what you can, and we need all the help we can get. So at the very least, get out and vote, and help us with volunteers at the polls, and help us get out our signs at the last minute. And thank you so much. Look forward to speaking with you again.